Hi, I'm Jason Inman.
And I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And holy hell, the time is here. The Justice League movie is out in the universe. We truly live in a bizarro time because while there's a crisis on DC TV, there's a crisis in the movie theaters, and it's a glorious nerd age we live in. All right, so we're going to talk about Justice League, spoiler-free here, for about the next 3 minutes or so, and then we're going to give you a giant warning, and then we're going to go dive deep. For all of you who haven't seen the movie yet, though, you are perfectly safe. Now, I got to say that for this movie, they really only had to clear the bar of Batman v Superman. Batman v Superman is a movie that has multiple problems in terms of the story, in terms of the character motivations, even in terms of the editing. And to be honest with you, I think Justice League succeeded where Batman v Superman failed. Now, I will say as well, Justice League is not a perfect movie. There are a lot of problems, and much like Star Trek Discovery, if you watch that show as well, it wears some of its production problems on its sleeves. But overall, before we dive deep into some of the characters, I think it is a success. What do you think about Justice League?
I think it is absolutely successful. I think it follows proudly in the traditions of the one great superhero team-up movie that we've ever had, The Avengers, the one that everyone sort of unequivocally agrees that we like. There's other ones that we quibble over. I think Justice League is a worthy successor to that. I think if Justice League would have come first, it would have enjoyed the same sort of status.
So you think if Justice League had come out first, it would be as lauded as Avengers would be?
I do think so, and I think it's a great step forward for this universe.
I also gotta say, it is a really fun movie. A lot of the character interactions, and that is the strength of Justice League, is that all of the members of the Justice League, I think, are well cast. I think all of them, including Cyborg and Flash. Cyborg and Flash, for me, are a couple of the standouts. Wonder Woman, of course, because she's fantastic and everything. But the plot problems of this movie can be forgiven because it is so much fun to see this league interact. Would you agree?
I would agree. It's a great action movie, which is all you really need. A team-up movie to be. But on top of that, you mentioned Cyborg. Ray Fisher brings some really interesting, really dynamic moments to a movie where, and a character, where we might not have had that otherwise.
Now, let's talk about the two major problems of this movie for me. The CGI, and that is primarily exposed with the other big weakness of this movie, Steppenwolf.
Yeah.
Now, Steppenwolf is this DC Comics character. He's always been a background character, but in this movie, he just shows up. There's no, you get this motivation that like he has a purpose, he has a mission, but we don't get to spend enough time with him. And this movie, another problem with this movie is that this movie runs along so fast that we don't get to learn like why he's doing anything. We don't get a reason to care for Steppenwolf. And also at the same point, his special effect CGI characterness just always looks bad. He doesn't look good in any scene to me.
I will say that he does make Ares from Wonder Woman look like a well-flushed out, incredibly dynamic villain.
That is an interesting, that is a great point.
By comparison, and we do criticize Ares as not being maybe a fully realized character, but barely there. Don't really understand why he's doing what he's doing. He causes a lot of mayhem and doesn't look as good as we hoped he would look.
Yeah, but I will say at the same time, another little bit of weakness is this movie does rush along a little bit. I wish we got to spend some more times. There are some big scenes in this movie that we'll talk about when we get to spoilers that I wish we got to spend some more time with, and I will be interested to see if they do an extended cut. I have a feeling they won't, but a success of this movie is, I think, for a movie that we all thought was going to feel very tonally different because of two different directors and two different writers, actually gels pretty well.
I would agree. If you're familiar with either director from their huge bodies of work, you can tell specific moments that were part of either's vision, but I do think they do a really good job at melding them together. It feels less Frankenstein than I feared it would, and I do feel like the changes that feel like they were added later on serve the overall thrust of the movie, and were steps in the right direction.
All right, well, I think we've gotten to the point where we can't really say any much more without full-on spoilers here. But anyways, I would say that if you like DC Comics, if you like those characters, you like the Justice League, you like Superman, I think you're really going to have a fun time. And to be honest with you, I've seen this movie twice now, and I've actually enjoyed it both times.
If you want to like this movie and you go in with an open mind, you will like it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so here is your massive spoiler warning. Right now, from this point forward, we're going to be talking about full-on spoilers. So, 3, 2, 1. All right, full-on spoiler territory. Let's just sort of like work our way through the movie or anything we talk about, stuff like that. You know, we get a scene in the very beginning where Batman beats up on a thug on a rooftop in Gotham. We have the weird Justice League Mindhunter Netflix crossover.
So good.
If you know Mindhunter, you know what we're talking about.
That brought like such an unexpected smile. I hope that character carries over into the Batman universe.
And this scene, as well as a bunch of the scenes at the beginning, because this is where the Wonder Woman bank scene happens. This is where the Batman goes to Aquaman scene happens. This is where the Batman shaves with Gillette product placement happens. These scenes really, to me, feel like they are a piece of Zack Snyder. They feel like they were the things that were filmed long ago.
I think that's also a safe assumption just based on the fact that a lot of this is what we've seen in the trailer. We've seen this stuff for a while. We saw this Aquaman stuff ages ago.
And I would say that is a weakness, and that is a negative point at the very beginning of the movie for me, that we've seen all these scenes in the trailer, and like especially the Aquaman scene. I actually think Aquaman gets short-shifted the most in this movie because a lot of his stuff you've seen in the trailers, especially him riding the parademon. We've seen that entire sequence in the trailers.
I would say that when they were structuring and restructuring this movie, there's probably an argument made for, well, Aquaman gets the next solo movie.
Sure.
He's going right into production like 30 days after he's wrapped here, so we can sideline him a little bit because we're getting to his story right away.
Yeah.
I think it's unfortunate, but I do think that Jason Momoa is used well when he's used because he's kind of a bro-y dude. I'm not really sure how great his range is, and he's great when we get him. He's well employed.
Well, because that is an interesting thing, because we see Atlantis in this movie. Mara and Aquaman get to have a scene, and Amber Heard in this scene, like, of course, has to create an air pocket for us to talk so Aquaman can talk. And
I want to say, before we had to see her act, Mara was really cool.
Looking.
Mara, CG Mara is kick-ass and can hold her own.
Looking.
And, like, I was really on board with Mara, and then she said some lines, and I was a little less on board, and they have no and they're not supposed to have a pre-existing relationship by this point, but there didn't even seem to be a level of attraction there, and we know that they're supposed to be. I'm hoping that, you know, with a director who's focused on that we might get that in the Aquaman movie, but like, oh man, it was a little rough when we were in Atlantis.
So in our spoiler-filled territory, what did you really dig from this movie? What did you not like from this movie? What stands out? Tell the viewers.
I super digged all of the Barry Allen stuff. Now, full disclosure.
Interesting. You don't like Barry Allen.
If you've never watched a video on this channel before, I don't particularly like Barry Allen. I think Wally West is a way better character, and I think that Barry Allen has been copying him ever since he came back to life. That's not necessarily not true in the characterization that we've seen here.
Yes.
But I think Ezra Miller is really charming, and he is a deeply interesting character. Barry has a complexity that we've never seen on screen in any incarnation before.
Yeah.
And the innocence that he brings really nicely contrasts some of the more hardened superheroes like Wonder Woman and Batman, and he brings a life to this character and a levity that even Cyborg, who's great. Cyborg that brings no levity to the team.
They do make an interesting choice where the Flash is basically us. Like, he runs into the Batcave and he's like, oh man, the Batcave, and he sits in the Batmobile and he gives this look like if we would have sat in the Batmobile. But an interesting thing that I thought really worked for Barry Allen was the scenes with his father, played by Billy Crudup.
Shout out to Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, we get of course, a Zack Snyder alum. That's why he's in this movie.
Absolutely.
And we get 2 scenes with Barry Allen's father. At first, at the beginning, where he says, leave me alone, and at the end where Barry gets his CSI job. And Billy Crudup is really great as Henry Allen, which I thought was really surprising. But also, as well, I want to talk about the look of the Flash running. Like, he gets several little things, and there's a nice little motif. It's one of Danny Elfman's better parts of the score, because I was not a fan of his score in this movie.
I would agree. I think it's a little lacking.
But when the Flash runs, there's a nice little Flash motif that's good, and it's all about, like, we're sort of doing the slow motion effect again, but of course there's lots of lightning and there's lots of like going through levels.
I think they learned a lot of interesting lessons from the X-Men movies.
Yeah.
And what to do and what not to do, and I think they elevated a typical speed effect. I also like that when he runs, he looks weird. He stretches like way beyond where the human body normally stretches when you run, but I think that works for someone who lives on a different level of physics than we do. I thought that was cool.
Yes. Now, I want to talk about the thing that I think makes this movie work more than anything else, and as soon as this thing shows up, I feel the movie seals together. And I was pleasantly surprised
it's not nice
that
to call them a thing.
I'm getting there because I'm saving the reveal. We're talking about Superman. Superman shows up in this movie way earlier than I ever expected him to show. I thought they were going to save him the third act, but Batman gets the idea, let's take the mother box, let's go to the Kryptonian ship, and let's jack some lightning right into Superman.
Yeah.
And we get several things in this that we didn't get several things we thought. We get no mullet. We don't get the black suit, which
everyone thought we were getting.
Everyone thought we were getting the black suit, but we do get Superman being evil for a bit. We get an action scene about it. He shows up, he's confused, he attacks the Justice League, and one of the best moments in the movie is he's holding Wonder Woman, he's holding Aquaman, Cyborg's right here, Barry runs around him, and Clark sees him.
It's their super speed fight, which is actually done in slow motion, was really cool.
It's amazing. And Superman's like a second behind, and Barry can't take it because he can't believe it. And then we get a reprise of the but it was do you bleed to Batman? And he drops Batman.
I thought that was cool. And also because that's a line that's very maligned now in a post-BVS world, and I sort of like repurposing it for this reason.
Yes, but this Superman was literally like DC Rebirth Superman walked off the page. They brightened up his costume. When he gets revealed at the end battle because he goes home and has some time on the Kent farm and some CGI scenes in the Kent farm. He shows up on Steppenwolf, and Steppenwolf's like, you don't know the truth. And he's like, I'm a big fan of truth and justice. Bam! And I was like, and he was joking around with the team. He flew around with Barry. He comes back to Steppenwolf, and he's like, you guys haven't beat this guy yet? And I was like, oh my God, this is so much the DC Rebirth. Henry Cavill seemed to be having fun. As soon as he showed up, I felt the movie congealed, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Especially when we get that last scene where Bruce Wayne saves the Kent house because the Kent house has gone, bankrupt or whatever, and Bruce buys the bank.
Yeah,
which is what he joked, and I felt like it was a scene directly out of Trinity.
Can we talk about Clark or Superman thanks Batman for bringing him back to life because he's like, I know you don't like me.
And he's like, I don't not. Like you.
Batman so badly wants to be like, no, I love you, but he can't say it. And I liked that moment for those two characters, and I think those two characters really needed a coming together moment. And even though it happens in the middle of a battle, I kind of think that's the most perfect way for it to have happened.
Sure. What else did you dig or not like from this movie?
Cyborg! I love the new Teen Titans. They're one of my all-time favorite comic book team. I love Cyborg. I've loved most every incarnation of Cyborg that we've had.
Booyah.
And bless whoever it was who brought Ray Fisher into this casting office.
He's really good.
Into this world. He is tremendous. He just nails it. He does some really interesting acting choices where it's like he's not sure how his language works anymore. You can feel the internal conflict in the character. You can feel his conflict with his father. Shout out to the dude who plays Silas Stone, who's apparently the king of genre filmmaking.
He was also in Terminator 2, and he built Skynet. So I think it's funny that he also now built Cyborg.
Cyborg, there's a great moment where Cyborg has to save him and kind of reconcile these two parts of himself. And I love that the reason that Cyborg is on the Justice League as a replacement for Jon Stewart or other characters who've been there in the past is difficult for some people, and sometimes people don't like him in this roster, and I think this movie cements why he's an integral part of this team and why a techno character like this can be an asset. I love that he's integral along with Superman in ultimately saving the day, and I'm just dying.
Oh, that was a great, okay, so that moment, I want to talk about that moment real quick. So the idea is that the three mother boxes are merging, Cyborg's like hacking him, and he needs Superman's strength to pull them apart. And when Superman comes up there and he's like, look, what's going to happen here? Cyborg's like, there's going to be an energy wave. And Superman's like, well, I hope it doesn't hurt too much because I don't want to die. I really like being alive.
And Cyborg says, I think we can take it.
And that's the completion of Cyborg's arc. But when they were standing there and we saw this shot, I was literally like, this is Grant Morrison's JLA come to life.
Yeah. And I loved it that they did the thing and everyone got knocked back and then they laughed.
Yep.
Because after highly emotional situations, you either laugh or cry, and I thought the choice for them to laugh was. I'm just dying to see what else they're gonna do with this character in this universe. And I
do you think that they like they previously announced when they put the full list of movies? Now that you've seen Justice League, do you want to see a Cyborg solo movie?
Yes, I do. And Cyborg solo series in the comics have been troubling and problematic, and they've had their struggles. But I think this version could definitely hold its own. And I can't believe how good that costume looks. The comic book. Now this is the thing. In the trailers, a lot of Cyborg's body looked very suspect, and I think it was probably largely unfinished effects.
Yes. In this movie, I think it mostly works, with the exception of the scene with Commissioner Gordon on the rooftop.
I would agree.
But his in-suit, that is the comic book suit, fantastic.
And real quick, the cannon was awesome.
Yep.
And the booyah was awesome.
The booyah was awesome.
So great.
All right, I'm going to talk about a weakness of this movie.
Oh, no.
A weakness of this movie is the rushed pacing. And this can be perfectly examined in the scene where Clark and Lois are back at the farmhouse and he's in the field, which in the editing of the trailer, they sold it as like this was a dream sequence.
Yes, they did.
And there's a nice little beat where Clark wakes up and he's like, oh, you called Ma. Like he hears her heartbeat. But then Martha shows up and she cries, they cry, and they hug. And the editing of this movie cuts away hard to like Steppenwolf in his tower. Now, this moment I felt was short-shifted. And I felt that this could have been a tear-inducing moment if we had like done a dolly shot that is very evocative of Superman the movie, swelled the music a little bit, and just took our time. Because I felt like we had to rush to get to Smallville. The running time of this movie, I think, is a weakness of this movie. This movie trucks along and truncates so many moments in this movie that I think we really should have expanded. Another scene that's not even in this movie that I think this movie really needed was, I really think we needed the scene where the world realizes that Superman's alive again. We have a whole montage in the beginning of this movie where it's like supposed to show us that the world really misses Superman.
Yeah.
Now, in this universe so far, besides saving Metropolis, Superman hasn't done a lot in this universe.
Yeah.
So the world, it's a little suspect that the world would think that way, but I'll give it to you for this movie. But if that's the case, then I need that completion of the arc at the end where even if he saved a cat out of a tree and then people with their phones are like, oh my God, Superman.
Yeah.
That would have done it. That would have done it. But instead, at the end of the movie, we don't even get that for the whole team. Like we get that nice little shot over Russia or wherever they are, where they're all like kind of standing there, and that's a nice little beat.
It is.
But I feel like we needed to see
more the scene of adulation.
Exactly. We needed to see the newspaper come down and be like, the Justice League ?
I think that was
like
supposed to be handled with Lois narrating her story.
I guess.
And really, Lois and Martha Kent don't have a lot to do in this movie.
No.
And if we'd added like 20 more minutes of breathing time,
Yep.
their stories could have been filled out a little better, because I felt, like you said, the scenes where they're both reunited with Clark, to me, I wanted to be affected more than I was, because as someone who's had someone die in my life who I would love to come back to life, I felt like their reactions were too quick and not emotional enough, and I think that's just a product of maybe how quickly the production schedule was. Sure.
Anything else you want to mention?
That I didn't like?
Or do like?
I want to really quick. I want to shout out. I really like Batman. Batman is like the back seat leader in this.
He's the coach.
He really wants everyone to reach their full potential. There's a great scene where Barry doesn't know what to do. The first time they kind of go in a big attack together. And he says, just save one person. And Barry says, and then what? And he says, you'll know what to do. That's great. Awesome. And then he spends a lot of time convincing Diana to step up. Yep. And there's a scene where he is having a hard time getting his costume off because he's injured. And she helps him. And I love this moment.
I think it's a great scene. I like that scene.
I love that moment for their relationship because they come at each other as equal leaders with different strengths.
Yep.
But I also like the idea that maybe there's some deeper feelings and there's some Alfred lines that lead to that. But we touched on it. and then we left. Like, there was no room for a romance, and we didn't dwell on it, but that scene...
There's a nice little setup for it in the future movie.
It's a lovely scene.
I gotta talk about another negative thing.
No.
The Amazons.
Yeah.
The Amazons were so amazing in Wonder Woman, and they had such unique fighting styles, and their architecture was great and stuff like that. And we get the Amazons in this movie, and they're just like women in hardly any clothes on a CGI flat background. Like Paradise Island in this, especially during the battle scene when they're riding the horses and stuff like that against Steppenwolf, looked so fake it hurt.
Themyscira never looks good in this movie. I don't understand why we didn't take the finished rendered sets from Wonder Woman and just move them over here.
Or why didn't we just go shoot on a grassy hill anywhere?
In Italy, yeah, or in Canada, for goodness sake. You shot in Quebec. There's forest there. I liked seeing the Amazons because they were cool.
Yeah.
However, warriors need to be covered up with armor. That was what was so cool about the original Wonder Woman is they have Greco-Roman, Grecian, they have greaves, they have leg covers, they have boots, like warriors do. And here there are characters that have new outfits, which I don't mind. You got to sell some action figures, where suddenly they're in bikinis where they weren't before, and suddenly we're looking up their stars. Wonder Woman has 4 different ass shots, and she's not even in the Themyscira scene.
And I will say, as a dude, I noticed it.
Right, and it's not like these women all don't have amazing bodies and they shouldn't be proud of them, but this shows you the difference in focus and what we were trying to say with the Amazons, and it doesn't build on the great mythology that we have set up from the previous movie.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and if you suddenly turn off the video or put this little marker down there in a YouTube comment saying like, that's a stupid point, you know what? Who's the idiot here? Who's the real idiot? Okay, you know what? I also want to talk about a little thing that I think is really cool, and that is the idea of Alfred in this movie. I thought Alfred being all about the team, I actually really liked Jeremy Irons in this movie way better than I did in Batman v Superman. Now, a lot of that might be because he just wasn't a sourpuss the entire time.
Yeah.
But a lot of this movie, he's making jokes about, like, it's about time someone goes on a date. You know, Master Wayne. Or like penguins, exploding penguins. Or that's the team, Mr. Wayne. You know.
But he functions really as an Oracle type character.
And it works. It really works. It kind of seems like he's almost more about the team in the beginning than Bruce, which
I would agree.
And I thought it really helped Bruce's journey because another negative to this movie is that, and this might be the runtime again, we don't quite learn the reason why Batman thinks an attack is coming. He just knows something is coming. And
I think he knows because of the parademons and they've been around.
I guess.
And
we get no sense of that as a viewer. We just know that because we've seen the trailers. But nothing in the movie tells us that.
Yeah.
And we sort of got that line that Batman at the end of Batman v Superman sort of realized it too. Now again, we get that he'd been looking through Luthor's notes or something like that.
Yeah.
I think we needed a little bit more. We didn't quite.
A little bit more detectiving.
A little bit more detective-y and stuff like that. Ashley, any other final beats that you want to, positives or negatives? Because I have a quick list of like cool little nerd moments that I want to touch on.
Just shout out to J.K. Simmons. You killed it as Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah.
Man, I love you.
Yeah.
We can go on.
All right. First off, we got to talk about there were a lot of scenes and trailers that were cut out.
Yeah.
Like Barry pushing through the glass was one of them. There's a bunch of other stuff like that. Iris West's cameo was cut out. Here's a big one. Here's a huge one. This was announced from a long time ago. Willem Dafoe as Volko in Atlantis.
Oh, shit, I forgot that.
Remember that they announced that a long time ago? He is nowhere to be seen in this movie.
I don't care.
All right, let's talk about the 2 in-credit scenes.
Oh, yes.
All right, so the first one is the Superman Flash race, which, my God, I was so happy about this. I also like that they gave Clark the joke, be like, if you lose, you're off the team. And Barry's like, what?
He believes so, yeah, for a second.
And then the idea that if I win, you got to take everybody out for brunch, and Barry's like, oh, that's cold.
I think it's funny, and this is a callback joke to when he's trying to save the little Russian family. He has no sense of direction.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've never seen the Pacific. And then Clark's like, But Clark is a good enough dude that he's like, sweetie, it's this
over
way.
here. It's over here.
He's not gonna let him run the other way.
Yeah. And also like the moment where Clark first flies up to him on the Russian thing and he was like slowpoke.
Yeah.
I think that was a good moment. All right, let's talk about the second scene. Which literally made me cheer out loud when I saw the movie for the first time. When we see those little bandanas going down.
Oh, you know.
And it's Deathstroke. And it's like, holy crap. It wasn't a test shot for the Batman. It was in Justice League. And the other person that they said was cut out from this movie is actually in this movie, Lex Luthor, played by Social Network. What's his name?
Jesse Eisenberg.
And they're gonna form an Injustice League.
Can I just? I want to say I actually thought that Jesse Eisenberg was palatable as Lex Luthor.
Me too.
He's very dialed down. He's very calm. He's very James Bond villain.
Yep.
And if that's what we're gonna get from him going forward, fine.
And also,
Great.
Joe Manganiello, I can't say his last name.
Chuck Mangione.
When he took off his mask and he was the
classic
He's
Deathstroke,
classic
yeah.
Slade Wilson.
I still don't know anything about him as an actor, but he looks great.
He did good.
He looks really great.
That gets me excited for Justice League 2.
Yeah, definitely.
That gets me really excited for 2. All right, so there's no Darkseid in this movie. He is mentioned once.
That was cool.
He was mentioned once,
was cool.
and we get the idea that Steppenwolf has been like touting around. Steppenwolf hasn't been able to go back to Apokolips because he failed on Earth.
Yeah.
And the idea is that when the mother boxes came together, it was going to turn the Earth into Apokolips. Big negative in this movie. Where the hell were their boom tubes coming from?
Yeah.
Because boom tubes come from mother boxes. I'll give it to you because I'll tell you this: when the boom tube first opens in Amazon and it's in Themyscira and it's so loud, I was like, "That is awesome."
They're very loud. They look cool
They're
too.
supposed to boom.
I think. And again, we keep going back to the runtime as a potential negative or a reason why they were. I wish we'd seen more of the Fourth World. I don't know,
Yes.
or get my
New Gods is name checked,
but I don't know when that would happen.
I just don't know. I don't know.
But I think a little more flushing out of that mythology would have been great.
Also, when we flash back to the past, we see the Atlanteans fighting with the Amazons. We see the Amazons fighting with the men. We see Zeus. We see Athena. We see a Green Lantern. Now, we don't know who this Green Lantern is. I kind of think that he sort of looks like he might be from Abin Sur's planet.
I agree.
I mean, but the Green Lantern dies and we see the ring fly away. I thought that was just enough to be like, there are Green Lanterns out there.
I thought that was an awesome way to include them without muddle it. We have 2 new characters to introduce already without having to muddle the waters even more by introducing Hal or hopefully anyone other than Hal.
Also, as a Superman fan, I have to say there was a bit of excitement. One of the coolest Easter eggs for me. I don't know if can you guess it?
No.
Freeze breath.
Oh!
This is the first time we've seen Superman use freeze breath in this universe.
Let's be honest, freeze breath, a little silly.
You be quiet! I want to see all of his powers, including the Rainbow Superman and super ventriloquism.
Yeah.
I want to see all of them. But he freezes Steppenwolf's axe, and Wonder Woman chops it in half.
That was cool.
I thought that was really. I was like, oh God, that's so good. All right, so those are, I think, some of the little Easter eggs and stuff like that that we can remember. There's so much to unpack in this movie. But Ashley, I want to give your final thoughts, and then I want you to give a rating based on a scale from 1 to 5, 5 being the best. So give your final thoughts on Justice League, and then give us your rating.
My final thoughts on Justice League are that as a team superhero movie, it succeeds as a building block into the furtherness of the DC film universe. It absolutely works. I think if you like DC movies and you like superhero movies, you go in with an open mind, you will enjoy this. You will be surprised at how amazing Cyborg is. Wonder Woman should lead every Justice League team. It's great. I will give it, because it is flawed, but it's a good time, and it gave me all of the happy feels that I wanted. Maybe not some of the deeper emotional feels that I've gotten from the other movies. I'll give it a 4.25. It was good. It was really
4.25.
It was real. 4.25 stars. How about 4 and a little point stars? So, how about you? Final thoughts and rating on Justice League.
Justice League does seem like a movie made specifically for fans over the concern of actually making a good film. I say that because there are great Easter eggs in here, Deathstroke's in here, the Superman Flash race is in here, moments that would make you and me as a DC Comics fan go, woo!
Yeah.
But there are plenty of moments in Justice League where when you think about the story, it really falls apart. It really does. And the main thing is Steppenwolf, because Steppenwolf doesn't hold it together. And when you think about the idea that our first Justice League movie had a scene in it where we watched Flash and Cyborg dig up a grave, that's problematic. But there's so much fun in here. And it's amazing to see how much the team, the actors, the chemistry of the actors of the League elevates this movie. And that really surprised the crap out of me. I didn't think that the acting would be the biggest thing in this movie that I would enjoy so much, the chemistry of this movie. And it's also surprising to me how similar this movie is to Thor Ragnarok. Because I think both Thor Ragnarok and Justice League have the same problems.
I agree, but in almost in different ways.
In different ways, you are correct. Like, there's a lot of CG on both sides. Some of that CG looked pretty bad, and sometimes the humor outweighs moments that should be huge. And also, both movies truck. They move so fast for more in a negative way than a positive way. But Justice League is a big, big step forward for the DC universe. It does make me really excited to see a Flash movie. It makes me really excited to see another Superman movie. And it does make me very intrigued to see what they're going to do with Cyborg, because I think Cyborg was a big standout in this movie. Cyborg, for me, and I know everybody's going to call me crazy, but Cyborg was a bigger standout in this movie for me than Aquaman.
I would agree.
I thought Aquaman was the one that stepped down. So, with all that in mind, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. It is right in the middle. It is a perfectly good superhero movie, but it's not a great one.
That's fair.
So that's where I fall on Justice League. Go down in the comments and give us your rating on Justice League, and while you're down there, click subscribe.
And why not click on one of the videos popping up on the screen, and for more exclusive geeky content, go to patreon.com/Jawiin.
Stick around this channel. We have plenty of DC goodness, and until the next video, see you later, super friends.